is going on, everyone? My name is Jamon McKinney, but of course you can just call me Juice because that is my nickname. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the latest edition of the Juice Alert. If you have not subscribed to the Juice Alert already, be sure to do that right about now. You will not regret it. You can, of course, find the Juice Alert on YouTube as well as podcasting platforms. That includes Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and all that great stuff. I do apologize for kind of a delay in creations of episodes for you guys. I had some technical difficulties behind the scenes and things of that nature. But the good news is I am here today. This episode should be coming to you on the day of the kickoff of the 2023-2024 NFL season, Chiefs versus Lions. My quick takeaway on that game is I do expect Kansas City to come out and get the victory. I do believe the game will be a lot closer than people are willing to give it credit for, just because Travis Kelce probably is not going to play in this game. Chris Jones probably not going to play in this game. And the Lions, the spotlight is finally on them. They're going to have a whole lot to play for, and I think that they're going to give the Kansas City Chiefs a run for their money, but I expect Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and the crew to find a way to pull off a victory in their home opener. Patrick Mahomes, one thing we know about him is that he's awesome, and he usually starts the season off very fast. So I expect the Chiefs to win that home opener. Before I do get started with this show today, we're going to be previewing and breaking down some very important topics for the 2023-2024 NFL season, and I'll give some of my official predictions and all those great shenanigans. Before I do get started, though, the social media has been popping off of recent. Shout out to Atlanta Falcons running back Bijan Robinson for showing some love to the podcast by, hitting that like button on Instagram for one of the short clip episodes. So if you enjoy the content, just like Atlanta Falcons running back Bijan Robinson, be sure to like, subscribe, and all that great stuff, and follow me on all social media platforms. One of the biggest storylines this season is Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is no longer the Green Bay Packers starting quarterback. He is beginning a brand new, wholesome chapter of his career with the New York Jets. And spoiler alert, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to do awesome things for the New York Jets. I expect Aaron Rodgers to play at an MVP level. I expect the Jets to be a great team. This is a team that has a lot of great pieces, a good run game, a good wide receiver core, a very solid defense. The offensive line does worry me a little bit. So I will say they may need to look to kind of retool that unit in the future. But for the most part, the Jets, they have most of the good 4 to 5 star ingredients that you're looking for in order to bake up a recipe that is a Super Bowl. But what I want to do today is I'm going to lay it all out on the line. I'm going to make 5 bold predictions for Aaron Rodgers' tenure with the New York Jets. So let's get started. Number 1 is that I believe Aaron Rodgers is going to play for the New York Jets for at least 3 seasons. I do not think this is a one and done type thing. Aaron Rodgers seems more committed than ever to excellence in his career. He sacrificed over $35 million per year, taking a pay cut to help the Jets improve their team and to give them cap flexibility. All the signs have pointed to the fact that Aaron Rodgers is all in for the season. I don't think this is going to be a disaster. So because I don't think it's going to be a disaster, I don't see any reason why Aaron Rodgers won't play football for at least another 3 years. I believe he has the talent to do so. He's a committed guy, always comes in shape and things of that nature, is a, magician of his craft. I believe Aaron Rodgers gives the Jets at least 3 seasons in New York City. The second biggest bold prediction is I believe Aaron Rodgers is going to win a league MVP at some point in the New York Jets uniform. I believe that. I believe Aaron Rodgers will win an MVP award in New York at some point. This is a guy in Aaron Rodgers that's motivated. He has a star wide receiver in Garrett Wilson by his side. He has other good weapons to throw to. And Aaron Rodgers, to me, is still one of the best quarterbacks in all of football. And one thing we know about Aaron Rodgers is when his back is against the wall and you doubt him, he tends to play his best football, a la in Green Bay the last couple of years where they drafted Jordan Love. He wins back-to-back MVPs. I think Aaron Rodgers' career is starting to mirror Peyton Manning just a little bit because Peyton Manning, he won a bunch of MVPs in Indianapolis, only won one Super Bowl, came to Denver to collaborate with a very talented group of people and a very talented roster, and he won an MVP award along the way because Peyton Manning is pretty awesome, and I think Aaron Rodgers is pretty awesome as well. He will win a league MVP award playing for the Jets. The third biggest prediction for Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets is I believe Aaron Rodgers is going to have a huge positive influence on former first-round pick Zach Wilson. I don't know if Zach Wilson will ever be a long-term franchise quarterback, but I do believe that he will eventually, when potentially Aaron Rodgers retires, when he gets an opportunity, we're going to see him play some good football at some point to where, maybe, he plays a little bit better and ups his trade value, potentially maybe another team takes a chance on him. Heck, maybe the Jets continue to take a chance on him. So I don't really know what the future holds for Zach Wilson. I wasn't a huge, fan of his when he was at BYU, but I do think that Aaron Rodgers, being that mentor, being that tutor, being that guy that Zach Wilson, can look up to, I believe it's going to be tremendous for Zach Wilson, and it will probably put at least another couple millions of dollars in his pocket, and he can thank Aaron Rodgers for that potentially. Okay, last but not least, the final two predictions. The fourth biggest prediction. I do not see a scenario where Aaron Rodgers ever misses the playoffs with the New York Jets. I said earlier that he's probably going to play for the Jets for about 3 seasons. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to go 3 for 3 in terms of making the playoffs. When you have one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, you have a great defense, you have good weapons, you just don't really miss the playoffs. It's a rare occurrence that a Mahomes, a Peyton Manning, an Aaron Rodgers, a Tom Brady, an all-time great quarterback misses the playoffs. The division is very tough, I will say that. However, I do think that Robert Saleh is a good head coach, and the Jets are very talented. And Aaron Rodgers, he's looking to improve upon his reputation. So I think that because of that, because of the motivation, and because I believe in the Jets and Aaron Rodgers specifically, Aaron Rodgers will get 3 more bites at the apple potentially in the playoffs at a Super Bowl. And last but not least, I expect Aaron Rodgers to at least appear in a Super Bowl in a New York Jets uniform. I think the Jets are really building something special. I don't know if it will be in year number 1 that Aaron Rodgers delivers a Super Bowl for the Jets. I think that it will be kind of similar to potentially how Peyton Manning was in Denver, where, things kind of, start off maybe a little bit slow. It took him a couple of years, to get to the Super Bowl and then win. But I think Aaron Rodgers, he's going to potentially follow that Peyton Manning blueprint, follow that Tom Brady blueprint, and at least the Jets will play in a Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers will make them relevant. And if they're playing in the Super Bowl, I find it hard to bet against an all-time great quarterback like Aaron Rodgers because he's a bad man. No doubt about it. So those are my 5 bold predictions for Aaron Rodgers with the New York Jets. And spoiler alert, I think Aaron Rodgers will do great things and bring relevancy to the New York Jets. And those are my 5 bold predictions right there. So I'm now going to rank every single starting quarterback currently heading into the 2023-2024 season. And I'm going to do this how I always do this because, I'm not really too infatuated with, ranking the 19th best quarterback or, the 23rd best guy, 26, 27. That's all very complicated. So you can kind of look at this in order if you want, but I'm ranking these quarterbacks in tiers. Tier number 1, the elite category. Tier number 2, the borderline elite category. Category number 3, the above average category. Category number 4, the average category. And category number 5, the unknown / below average category. In the elite tier, I have 3 quarterbacks: Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, and Aaron Rodgers. I believe these are the 3 best quarterbacks in the entire NFL. And to me, the most important physical trait for a quarterback is the ability to throw an accurate football. Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, and Aaron Rodgers, those are the three most accurate quarterbacks in the NFL. They're just natural throwers of the football. It looks different. It feels different when you watch and see them play. And these guys have proven they can make deep postseason runs and even potentially win a Super Bowl. Joe Burrow is still looking to do that. But let's not forget, people, Joe Burrow carried arguably the worst offensive line of the last probably 20 years to a Super Bowl. You know, Joe Burrow was sacked over 70 times on his way to getting the Bengals to a Super Bowl. Now, you may be wondering why Aaron Rodgers is in this category. Again, from a talent perspective, Aaron Rodgers is the best thrower of the football of all time. I believe in him, and I just don't think any quarterbacks like Josh Allen, like Lamar Jackson, like Justin Herbert have done enough over a sustained period of time for me to dethrone Aaron Rodgers and say Aaron Rodgers is no longer in that elite category. Now, there's a lot of pressure on Aaron Rodgers coming off a down season, but we just saw Aaron Rodgers recently win back-to-back MVPs, and I think his situation in Green Bay wasn't all that great. So, again, Mahomes, he's the best player in all of football, the best quarterback by far. You know, he's the cream of the crop. He's proven it in the playoffs, proven it in the regular season, and I think Joe Burrow and Aaron Rodgers are right behind him. I started to put only Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow in that category, but out of respect for Aaron Rodgers and his resume and the fact that you cannot fool that guy at the line of scrimmage, you know, the fact that Aaron Rodgers has so much experience that he's really out there just toying with the defense at times, I have to put Aaron Rodgers in that elite category. I don't think Aaron Rodgers has fallen off quite yet. He'll do great things for the Jets. Okay, up next, the borderline elite category for quarterbacks in the 2023-2024 season. In that tier, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 quarterbacks. Okay, so we're through 11 guys right now. Okay, and 8 of these guys are in the borderline elite tier. You have Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, and Matthew Stafford in no particular order, okay? No particular order. These are guys that aren't quite in the elite category, meaning, you know, each week I know what I'm going to get from them. You know, it's either they just have a little bit of an inconsistency to their game from a week-to-week basis, or they just haven't quite proven themselves in the postseason like a Justin Herbert, you know, like a Kyler Murray, you know. But I can look at the talent of these guys and say, these guys kind of have somewhere around the elite tier of a talent in their repertoire, you know, where they have a special skill like Matthew Stafford, you know, Justin Herbert, unbelievable arm strength, Jalen Hurts, unbelievable mobility, same with Josh Allen, you know, Deshaun Watson, unbelievable playmaking ability, you know, and looking at Deshaun Watson, I don't think Deshaun Watson has fallen off. I think you would be a fool to write off Deshaun Watson, a guy that was playing at an MVP level in Houston the last time we saw him play a full season. I have not counted Deshaun Watson out. And I look at all 8 of these guys, and they're not quite the best of the best, not quite elite, but if you were to trade for any of these guys, they can put you in the Super Bowl conversation, no doubt about it. Probably the worst out of the group is Kyler Murray, you know, and I think Kyler Murray is as talented as it gets. It's just about the inconsistencies that I see from him and things of that nature. You know, Lamar Jackson, you know, he has had his playoff struggles. You know, Trevor Lawrence, you know, really hasn't proven it over a sustained period of time, but we know that he's an ultra talented quarterback. So I think that pretty much sums up this tier. Jalen Hurts, he's been to a Super Bowl. I thought he outplayed Patrick Mahomes in that Super Bowl, and he's only getting better and better. And I think that his physical tools are underrated. So there you go right there. Let's move on to the above average tier. So there are only 5 quarterbacks in this tier right here, and we're already at quarterback number 16 right here when you look at these things, okay? So in this tier, I have Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, Jared Goff, Justin Fields, and Geno Smith. Geno Smith has climbed up this list tremendously. I have a lot of respect for what he did in Seattle. I do believe if Geno Smith continues to improve, you actually can win a Super Bowl with him being your starting quarterback, just because I think that when it comes to Geno Smith, he's a guy that is not being handheld by Pete Carroll. I think Pete Carroll really started to give him the keys to that franchise last year, and Geno Smith proved him right, okay? And you look at Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, Jared Goff, Justin Fields. These are all guys that have a special trait to a degree. Even Jared Goff, I think Jared Goff throws a very good deep ball, has very good touch down the field. The thing is, there's a ceiling with these guys to where they can win a lot of games probably in the regular season if you put the right pieces around them, but they're probably going to bottom out in the playoffs. Can they take it to that next level? Has Russell Wilson's best days, surpassed him in Denver? There's a lot of concerning things with Russell Wilson, but because of his track record, I'm putting him in the above average category. I think that these guys have proven themselves to be good enough to be, above average, to where you're not going to worry about them too much. They can be franchise guys, but there is a clear-cut ceiling. Okay, up next, tier number 4, the average category. These guys are only as good as the head coach and the team that you put around them. And even if the situation is nearly perfect, they still might not quite be good enough to win a Super Bowl. Tua Tagovailoa, Kirk Cousins, Mac Jones, Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo, Kenny Pickett, Ryan Tannehill, Brock Purdy, and Baker Mayfield. I wanted to put Baker Mayfield in the above average category. That sounds crazy. I'm probably higher on Baker Mayfield than 95% of the NFL universe, but I have to recognize that Baker Mayfield has regressed ever since, he won that playoff game in Cleveland. So, look, I think the situation around Baker has had a lot to do with his regression, but at the same time, I have to hold Baker Mayfield accountable because there's just been some stuff that I don't like, okay? But you look at Brock Purdy, proved himself in San Francisco, was winning games. I just don't think the talent is as eye-popping. Is it the Shanahan system and the great weapons, or is it Brock Purdy? We're going to eventually see he can climb up this list. But guys like, Ryan Tannehill, Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, they've been around the NFL for long enough for us to know what they are. They're not big game quarterbacks, but they're quarterbacks that if you give them a stable situation, they can win games, they can hold down that ship, but you're always potentially looking to upgrade. You're always thinking, I can do a little bit better. You look at a guy like Mac Jones, Jimmy Garoppolo, these guys, they're just not wildly, overwhelmingly talented compared to some of those other guys out there. But these are guys that have a lot of respect. They're viable starting quarterbacks that can hold down the ship for you. Those are all the guys in tier number 4. Last but not least, quarterbacks for the 2023-2024 season in tier number 5, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Jordan Love, Sam Howell, Desmond Ridder, and Daniel Jones. Let me start off by saying Daniel Jones is arguably the worst starting quarterback in the NFL right now, because I can make the argument I would rather have all 31 guys on this list over Daniel Jones. You may think that I'm crazy because you can say, oh, Daniel Jones, he's played some games. He won a playoff game last year. He's proven more than Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, quarterbacks like that. And you're right. But the thing is, compared to what Daniel Jones was in college and what these guys can become, they were much more talented prospects than Daniel Jones. When you look at Daniel Jones' college profile, and Daniel Jones has done nothing in the NFL to suggest that he should be head and shoulders above these guys. Would I rather have Daniel Jones or the unknown mystery of a Bryce Young or a CJ Stroud or Anthony Richardson? I'm going with the unknown talented rookies. I'm sorry. Daniel Jones, I understand that he played pretty decent this past year, but he was being spoon-fed and baby-fed by the great coaching of Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll is carrying this situation. I think it's only a matter of time before Daniel Jones is exposed. The talent is not overwhelmingly impressive at all. There's a reason why everyone in New York City rioted when the guy was drafted. They've tried to pretend, to like the guy and get behind him. I understand it because he's their quarterback, but I'm here to tell the truth. Daniel Jones, not that talented. You look at Desmond Ridder, I'm not all that impressed by what I've seen. He does have, at least a B plus arm, I would say. But again, I got to see him put it together. He could put it together, but I just wasn't a huge fan of his at Cincinnati, and we'll see what he could do. You look at a guy like Jordan Love, haven't really known much about him, haven't really seen him. The last time we saw him, start an NFL game, he looked overwhelmed versus Kansas City, but it does seem like he's getting better and better. And again, guys like Jordan Love, Sam Howell, and Desmond Ridder, these guys, they just haven't played enough games for me to really know anything. And when you look at Daniel Jones, he's an unknown just for the fact that I don't know if I'm going to be able to get the most out of him because I think that I'm limited physically from a talent perspective. And again, I just don't know when I'm going to get that next big leap from Daniel Jones because I think that he has a limited skill set and he's been very inconsistent as a thrower of the football in the NFL up to this point. So there you have it. That's all 32 quarterbacks ranked right there. And yeah, I feel pretty confident about my rankings for the quarterbacks in 2023, 2024. We are going to now move on to which teams are going to make the playoffs. Let's start off with the AFC. I believe the Kansas City Chiefs, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the New York Jets, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Miami Dolphins, the Cleveland Browns, and the Cincinnati Bengals will all be playoff teams this season in 2023, 2024. You look at all these teams, they all have ingredients that you love. Quarterback, Chiefs, Jaguars, Jets, Browns, Bengals, dynamic. You look at coaching. Even though I'm not the biggest Tua Tagovailoa fan, I gotta give a lot of respect to Mike McDaniel in Miami. And I think that roster is loaded with talent. I've been saying for a while, Tyreek Hill is the best wide receiver in all football. Jalen Waddle is an excellent number 2 wide receiver. The Dolphins have added to their defense. Vic Fangio's now on their coaching staff. So I think Miami could really surprise some people this year. You look at Pittsburgh. I've been betting against the Pittsburgh Steelers for quite some time. I think I'm going to learn my lesson here soon eventually, and I think I'm going to start off on the right foot by putting them in the playoffs. It all comes down to Kenny Pickett and Matt Canada. Can Kenny Pickett and Matt Canada be a good head coach and offensive coordinator combination? I think that because of the talent the Pittsburgh Steelers have, it can at least work for a year. Pickett has receivers. He's got a star running back in Najee Harris. Mike Tomlin's an excellent head coach. And I think that they're going to do pretty well this year. You look at Kansas City, enough said. Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, they're the cream of the crop. They're defending Super Bowl champions. They've won multiple championships already. And it's the potential start of a dynasty, okay? You look at Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think they win their division by default. You look at, that division. I don't think that any coach in that division is close to Doug Peterson. I don't think any quarterback in that division is close to Trevor Lawrence. You look at the New York Jets. Yes, it's a risk betting on this team, but I believe in Aaron Rodgers, a Hall of Fame level quarterback, maybe for my money, the most talented thrower of the football we've ever seen. He's got a defense. He's got a star wide receiver. He's got a run game. And I think Robert Saleh is actually an underrated head coach, And looking at Cleveland, and Cincinnati in the AFC North, I got to tell you, I'm buying Deshaun Watson stock right now. I do not think Deshaun Watson is going to fall off a cliff. I think Deshaun Watson being in the best situation he's ever been in from a coaching standpoint, from a talent perspective, as far as pieces around him, looking at receivers, running backs, offensive line, and defense. I find it hard for anyone to tell me the Cleveland Browns are not one of the 10 most talented rosters in all football. Now Deshaun has a full off season to really get things going. He's going to be the quarterback from the jump. This is the year Deshaun Watson puts himself back on the map. That is how I see the AFC playoffs shaping out this year in 2023, 2024. Okay, 2023, 2024 NFC playoffs. This was actually a little bit difficult for me, but I came to the conclusion that the Eagles, the Lions, the Seahawks, the Falcons, the 49ers, the Cowboys, and the Los Angeles Rams will be in the playoffs. The Rams might be the team that everyone is scratching their head at. Listen, Matthew Stafford is one of the 10 best quarterbacks in all football when he's healthy. Sean McVay, to me, best coach in the NFL, not named Andy Reid. Aaron Donald, still one of the 10 best football players in the entire world, maybe even one of the 5 best football players in the world. I know he had a down year last year, but Aaron Donald is still very awesome. Cooper Kupp, I think Cooper Kupp's an elite wide receiver. You look at Van Jefferson, I think he's a good complementary piece to Cooper Kupp. You look at Tutu Atwell, I think Tutu Atwell's good. You look at Cam Akers, I think Cam Akers is one of the more underrated running backs in the NFL. I think the Rams, when you look at their team, they have the star power, they have the coaching, and I think the parts around those stars are a little bit underrated. I think very highly of Sean McVay, and I think the Rams will surprise people this year. You look at Philadelphia, pretty obvious. They were just in the Super Bowl last year, should have won that Super Bowl versus Kansas City. The roster's loaded. Jalen Hurts is a leader and a quarterback that I believe in. You look at Detroit. Detroit, came on strong at the end of the year. Could have been a playoff team. I think they carry that momentum into this year. Jared Goff has the weapons. The defense is a little bit shaky, so I don't think the Lions are necessarily a Super Bowl contender. I do think that they're going to take advantage of Aaron Rodgers leaving that division. They'll be the one and only playoff team from the NFC North. You look at Seattle. I think Seattle has a Super Bowl caliber roster. You look at their weapons on offense. You're looking at some of the young stars they have on defense. I think Pete Carroll is still a great head coach. It all comes down to Geno Smith. Will Geno Smith take another leap? Will he stay the same? Will he regress? I think Geno Smith is bound for an MVP type season. You look at the Atlanta Falcons. I had to choose someone from the NFC South. I think they win that division by default just because I believe the Falcons have an opportunity to have a top 5 offense in the NFL. Kyle Pitts, I said it the other day, he has a chance to go down as one of the greatest tight ends of all time. I like Drake London as a wide receiver. I like Bijan Robinson a lot. I think that he's going to be an elite running back in the National Football League. I don't love Desmond Ridder. However, I do think Desmond Ridder can kind of be like Daniel Jones last year, to where he's not perfect, not great by any means, a little bit challenged as far as, him being an NFL starting quarterback, but I think that he can be good enough to at least make the playoffs this year. And they're going to run the football a lot, so there'll be pressure off of him. And he's got good weapons too. You look at the 49ers and the Cowboys, 2 teams that made the playoffs, recently. The 49ers, there's been a lot of controversy this offseason, but I just find it hard to believe with that roster and that coaching staff they'll miss the playoffs. And same thing with Dallas. I started to put Washington in the playoffs over Dallas, but I just don't know what I'm going to get from Sam Howell at quarterback in Washington. I'm just going to trust the fact that Dallas won games even without Dak Prescott last year. They have a very talented roster despite Mike McCarthy potentially holding them back and Dak Prescott's limitations. So those are the 7 NFC teams I believe in for 2023, 2024. Let us now move on to the 6 teams that I believe can win Super Bowl 58. The New York Jets, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Cleveland Browns, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Seattle Seahawks. Those are the 6 teams. I did not include the 49ers. I have questions at quarterback. I think Kyle Shanahan is an overrated head coach. You look at Dallas. Again, not a huge Mike McCarthy fan. Not a big Dak Prescott fan. All these teams that I have in my Super Bowl bubble have really, really great quarterbacks or a great coaching staff. You look at the Jets, the Chiefs, the Browns, the Bengals, the Eagles, the Seahawks, even with Geno Smith, who played like a top 10 quarterback last year. These are quarterbacks that I all trust. And even a guy like Robert Saleh in New York, I think Robert Saleh, he's going to prove this year that he's one of the better head coaches in the National Football League. Maybe he does not enter that top 10 or top 5 category, but I think Robert Saleh as a motivator, as a defensive mind, as a guy that seems to really register with his players, I think he's going to be a key piece to really bring that puzzle together in New York with the Jets. Now that they've added Aaron Rodgers, they have a loaded defense. We know about Kansas City. We know about Cincinnati. We know about Philadelphia. We think we know about Seattle. It all comes down to Geno, and I believe in Geno Smith. The one team you're probably going to scratch your head at is the Cleveland Browns. Listen, if Deshaun Watson plays like a top 5 or a top 10 quarterback, which I believe he will, because I think Deshaun Watson, even back to his Clemson days, I've been convinced that brother is special. They've got the star wide receivers. They've got one of the best running backs in the NFL in Nick Chubb. You know, they should have an improved defense with a new defensive coordinator. Myles Garrett is an absolute superstar. I think Kevin Stefanski, he's not close to Sean McVay, don't get me wrong, but I do believe with the Browns going from Baker Mayfield to Deshaun Watson, that will be a similar upgrade from when the Rams went from Jared Goff to Matthew Stafford. Because even though Jared Goff and Baker Mayfield have proven they can win games, be good quarterbacks, Matthew Stafford and Deshaun Watson are just a tier above those guys, and they're special throwers of the football. And I think that Deshaun Watson will be to the Cleveland Browns what Matthew Stafford was to the Rams, to where I think the Browns, they can enter that Super Bowl conversation very, very quickly. And unlike Matthew Stafford, Deshaun Watson is at this point smack dead in the prime of his career as we think. So those are the teams I believe can win a Super Bowl this season in 2023, 2024, Super Bowl 58, Chiefs, Jets, Browns, Bengals, Eagles, and Seahawks. It is now officially time for me to rank the top 10 players in the National Football League for the 2023-2024 season. Number 1, Patrick Mahomes. Number 2, Nick Bosa. Number 3, Travis Kelce. Number 4, Tyreek Hill. Number 5, Justin Jefferson. Number 6, Trent Williams. Number 7, TJ Watt. Number 8, Micah Parsons. Number 9, Joe Burrow. Number 10, Aaron Donald. And the 3 honorable mentions are Jair Alexander, Saquon Barkley, and Chris Jones. Let's dive into this list right here, right now. It should be obvious. Patrick Mahomes is easily the best player in all football. He's proven it on the biggest stage. He's the best player at the most valuable position in the National Football League. And you can make the argument he's the most talented guy in the sport. There's probably never been a more talented quarterback than Patrick Mahomes in the National Football League, maybe outside of Aaron Rodgers and maybe Dan Marino. That's about it. This guy is a special transcendent passer, has won multiple Super Bowls, multiple MVPs. You get the point. You look at Nick Bosa. I believe Nick Bosa has entered the category to where he's the best defensive player in the sport, the best player in football not named Patrick Mahomes. You look at Travis Kelce. When I watch him play football, it's just different. It seems like I'm watching maybe the best tight end of all time in terms of route running, in terms of hands, in terms of the ability to get yards after the catch, the ability to be a red zone target. Travis Kelce has proved himself time and time again. I think that if you put him on any team, he instantly gives the quarterback the ultimate elite safety net at the tight end position. I believe Tyreek Hill is the best wide receiver in all football. I've said this for a while. Justin Jefferson is right there. I just believe Tyreek Hill's ability to change the game and take over the game with his speed, it draws more defensive attention. And to me, it's more valuable when you're looking at things, and it gives me a little bit more creativity. However, Tyreek Hill and Justin Jefferson, those are the 2 best wide receivers, any way you want to put it. Trent Williams, to me, he's just different. The size, the strength, the athleticism. I think he's the best offensive lineman in the entire National Football League. Micah Parsons, the most versatile defensive player in the NFL. I think he's cracking on that door. I think that one day we could look at Micah Parsons and say that might be the best player, not only on defense in the National Football League, but point blank, period. He's that special. The talent is off the charts. And I think he's just starting to scratch the surface. You look at Joe Burrow, he's the best quarterback in the NFL, not named Patrick Mahomes, arguably the most accurate thrower of the football in the NFL, probably not named Aaron Rodgers. Joe Burrow, he's special. We've seen him, do it behind a bad offensive line. He's really put the Bengals on his back. He's lived up to the number 1 overall pick that he was several years ago at LSU. You look at Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald did have a down season this year, but I think Aaron Donald is still a special physical specimen. Even Aaron Donald in a down season is probably still a 95 overall on Madden, okay? And you look at Jair Alexander, arguably the best cornerback in the entire NFL. Saquon Barkley, to me, is the best running back in the NFL. His talent is amazing, and we saw him literally put the New York Giants' entire offense on his back this year. You look at Chris Jones, I think there's a chance that he could cement himself as the best defensive tackle in the NFL, even over Aaron Donald, if Aaron Donald continues to trend down and Chris Jones continues to trend up. So there you have it. Those are the top 10 players in the entire NFL right here, right now. So I want to quickly talk about the Detroit Lions, because the Detroit Lions 2023 will be the most important year, arguably, in the history of the Detroit Lions franchise. The Lions have been labeled an abysmal and out of whack franchise for decades now. I mean, for crying out loud, it wasn't too long ago, people. This team went 0-16 on a season. 0 wins, 16 losses. So a few years ago, the Lions, they started to rebuild, and they bring in Dan Campbell. They bring in Jared Goff to be their new franchise quarterback, trading away Matthew Stafford, who exposed their organization by winning a Super Bowl, I will say, but that's neither here nor there. But since that Jared Goff trade and since bringing in Dan Campbell, the Lions have been slowly but surely trending up. It's time to now put on the big boy pants. Aaron Rodgers is no longer in the division. The Chicago Bears are in a rebuilding stage. And the Minnesota Vikings, many will argue, are coming off a fluke season. And I'm not sure what the future holds for Kirk Cousins as he's getting older. And, we'll just see. The Vikings seem like this team every year that could win a Super Bowl, but always seem to disappoint. It is now time for the Detroit Lions to go out there and change their culture officially and get to the playoffs and start to get on track to potentially winning a Super Bowl. Because let's say the Lions go out there and they win a playoff game and they get to the playoffs, they win their division. Some free agents are going to go, I might like what they're building in Detroit. Winning cures everything, people. Winning provides stability. It provides press. It provides great optics. And it makes everyone happy because everyone gets paid. When you're losing, folks get fired. They get left out the door. They probably don't get paid. The Lions, they have a chance to really turn things around this year. I encourage Detroit Lions fans to go out there and enjoy this season and go out there and root for your team, because the Detroit Lions have a chance to do something special in 2023 and beyond. However, it will all come down to how the Detroit Lions handle expectations when they're no longer the guys hunting, but they potentially are one of the teams that are hunted. Some teams shrink under that pressure, and some teams embrace and elevate under that pressure. We'll see if the Detroit Lions are for real officially here in 2023 and beyond. So let's see right here. I want to now move on and discuss Deshaun Watson. I would not begin to doubt Deshaun Watson. I'm buying all the Deshaun Watson stock that I can. This is a guy that in Houston was playing at an MVP type level for consistent seasons behind one of the worst offensive lines in the entire NFL. Didn't really have a run game. Bill O'Brien was an average at best head coach. You looked at the Houston Texans and you said, okay, the roster kind of looks weird. I don't think this team can really compete. And Deshaun Watson, every single time he stepped on that field, he gave them a puncher's chance. Now, I understand that Deshaun Watson has been away from football for a long time. I get it. And he was very rusty last season. However, I do believe as time goes on, Deshaun Watson will continue to get better and better. And I think Deshaun Watson will insert himself back into that elite quarterback conversation, because this is the best situation Deshaun Watson has ever been in. He's got the best wide receiver core he's ever had, arguably. He's got the best offensive line by far. One of the best running backs he's ever played with. I mean, Nick Chubb probably is the best running back he's ever played with beside him. And I think Kevin Stefanski is an underrated head coach in the NFL. I like his play calling. He won a playoff game with Baker Mayfield as his quarterback. And no offense to Baker, but Deshaun Watson is more talented than Baker Mayfield, point blank, period. It seems like because of all the off-the-field allegations, everyone's rooting for Deshaun Watson to fail. I understand where people are coming from, even though I am not in that boat. But the point is, Deshaun Watson seems like he's out to prove everyone wrong, and he's out to stick it to the Houston Texans because he told them flat out, I want out of Houston. I don't think I can win a Super Bowl with you guys, okay? You didn't support me. I'm out of there. And because of the off-the-field allegations, things like that, Deshaun Watson got his wish. And he's had to go through a lot of moving parts and things, a lot of it due to his own doing, I will admit. But on the other side of it, Deshaun Watson's gotten paid, and he's been rewarded with star wide receivers, a great offensive line, a great defense, potentially, that has potential, and a much better coaching staff. So I think Deshaun Watson, I would not rule out Deshaun Watson. I'm not counting him out. Deshaun Watson still is more than capable of playing at an elite level and potentially leading a team to a Super Bowl. I think he's going to do a lot of special things for the Cleveland Browns. No doubt about it. Another quarterback that a lot of people have been counting out is Russell Wilson, and rightfully so because, man, Russell Wilson's first season with the Denver Broncos, it was ugly, and a lot of the blame falls on Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson was a big responsibility for the Denver Broncos having arguably the worst offense in the NFL his first season there. I know Nathaniel Hackett was bad, but Russell Wilson also did not seem like himself from a leadership perspective, and on the field, there was a lot of concerning things you saw on tape. It did not seem like that's the same Russell Wilson that we all grew to love in Seattle, a quarterback that actually won a Super Bowl at one point. Russell Wilson's back is against the wall in Denver. Everyone is counting him out. They're saying, man, he's got no shot versus Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert in that division. The AFC is loaded with star quarterbacks. Russell Wilson is washed. He can't cook anymore. He's burning the turkey. He's not cooking the collard greens right anymore. The brownies aren't squishy and chewy and soft and gooey. They're burnt and they should be thrown to the side. Russell Wilson has been bailed on by many people. But Russell Wilson has an opportunity to get back on track because Sean Payton is coming to town. It's not a guarantee that he will help Russell Wilson, but Russell Wilson now has a legitimate, fair opportunity to get things back on track with the Denver Broncos. They have a pretty talented defense. They've got some decent weapons, although they are dealing with some injuries. So Russell Wilson is going to be asked to be that franchise-changing quarterback he was brought to Denver to be. He gets paid the big bucks to be that guy for the Denver Broncos. Can Russell Wilson live up to the hype with everyone seeming to write him off? They're saying Russell Wilson's washed. He can't throw the deep ball anymore. He's this corny guy. Broncos country, let's ride. Let Russ cook. We don't believe in you, Russ. Russell Wilson, can you hear that chatter? Because if you can, and you're still that guy in Seattle that I grew to know and love, you're going to go out there and be much better this year. Maybe you won't, quite make the playoffs. Maybe you won't win as many games as people expect. But Russell Wilson, can you look the part this year? Can you not be a part of the problem? We are going to find out because guess what? Whether Russell Wilson is actually declining or he just wasn't the guy we thought he was in Seattle, regardless of what's going to happen, everyone is going to put the blame on Russell Wilson, fair or unfair, if things do not go well. So if I'm Russell Wilson, I'm doing everything in my power to go out there and look the part. I'm very, very, very much interested to see how Russell Wilson does. with Sean Payton being his head coach for the Denver Broncos. I want to end the show by talking about Trey Lance. Let's start off by saying the Dallas Cowboys might have something in Trey Lance, because I thought Trey Lance was a pretty good prospect coming out of North Dakota State. I believed in his talent. He's got the size. I think that he's a good guy. He's a guy that people can captivate towards in a locker room. I saw the deep ball accuracy. I saw the mobility. Trey Lance has some special stuff to his game. He's just a very, very raw quarterback that needs a lot more experience. And I will say, there were a lot of things that concerned me when he was in San Francisco, but Dallas decided to take a flyer on him. And I will say, regardless of my Trey Lance opinions, this has nothing to do with how I view Trey Lance. And how I view Trey Lance is this. I think Trey Lance can turn into a good starting quarterback one day in the NFL. He may have to take the Geno Smith route where he sits as a backup quarterback for a little bit, kind of learns and gets experience and really soaks in the true NFL game. And once he gets his opportunity, he's going to have to shine. But I think that Trey Lance can eventually become a good starting quarterback. Regardless of all of that, though, I deep down truly believe this. I think Jerry Jones looks at Trey Lance and he says, Trey Lance can be just as good, if not better, than Dak Prescott eventually. I wholeheartedly believe Jerry Jones believes this. And I know what Cowboys fans are typing and saying. They're saying, oh, you're delusional. You're a Dak Prescott hater. Okay, people, let's look at the situation right here. Would the Jacksonville Jaguars make a trade for Trey Lance? No, they would not. You want to know why? Because Trevor Lawrence, we know he's a generational talent. Would the Cincinnati Bengals make a trade for Trey Lance? No, they wouldn't. You want to know why? Because Joe Burrow is their starting quarterback. And he's going to be their starting quarterback as long as he's healthy. There's nothing to talk about. Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, you get the point. When you have an established star quarterback that you have no doubts about, you're not going to bring in another backup quarterback that has high upside that potentially could turn into something because it's a distraction. And there's no need to ruffle the feathers with the star quarterback. Dak Prescott was picked in the 4th round of his draft class. And Dak Prescott has turned himself into a pretty darn good starting quarterback, has accomplished a lot for himself, has been able to win multiple playoff games, made the Pro Bowl multiple times, I believe. Dak Prescott is a very, very good quarterback. But Jerry Jones, sadly, in the back of his mind, looks at Dak Prescott as a guy that he found in the 4th round. It's not like Jerry found him in the 1st round and traded up for him. See, when you fall into the laps of someone's always thinking in the back of their mind, man, could I maybe do better? And I think Jerry Jones, even though he will never publicly admit this, he thinks in the back of his mind, there might be a slight possibility I, down the line, can do better than Dak Prescott. And to be honest with you, people are going to hate me for saying this. I potentially agree. Because as good as Dak Prescott is, I think he's peaked as a player. I really do. We're entering year number 8. Are we expecting Dak Prescott to take an MVP leap and lead the Cowboys to a Super Bowl victory? I don't see it. I think Dak Prescott's good, but I think there is a clear-cut ceiling. I think there's about 8 to 9 quarterbacks in the NFL that are super-duper special, and Dak Prescott is not one of them. I think Dak Prescott is roughly anywhere from the 14th to 11th best quarterback in the NFL. And again, that's very, very good. But will it ever be special enough to win a Super Bowl? I never felt he would be that. And I think Jerry Jones is willing to experiment at the very least. If Dak Prescott suffers another injury, or if he continues to lead the league in interceptions like he did this past year, where he threw 15 interceptions in 12 games, another injury to Dak Prescott, and boom, we could maybe see Trey Lance. In fact, did we ever expect Dak Prescott to overtake Tony Romo out of nowhere? A lot of people would have told you, man, you're silly for thinking that's going to happen, and boom, it happened out of nowhere. Tom Brady came out of nowhere. Geno Smith came out of nowhere in Seattle. So all I'm saying, people, is keep your eye on Trey Lance in San Francisco. And deep down, I believe Jerry Jones believes in Trey Lance and believes he can be at least just as good as Dak Prescott. And by the way, Dak Prescott hasn't gotten a new extension yet. So is Jerry Jones going to want to hold out with that and wonder what happens? That very well could be a possibility, and a scratchy but odd situation in Dallas with Trey Lance being a quarterback on that roster that potentially could threaten Dak Prescott.